King of the ages, you give glory, honor, and power over the things of earth to the sons of men. Direct, Lord, their counsel, following what is pleasing and acceptable in your sight, so that by exercising with devotion and in peace the gentleness, the power that you have given to them, they may find favor with you. Okay? So we have to pray for them.
Yeah, because I can see the other side using that.
Okay? We can pray for them. Now listen, now we're getting to what we want to get at. If authority belongs to the order established by God, okay, which it is, if authority belongs to the order established by God, the choice of the political regime and the appointment of rulers are left to the free decision of the citizens. You can vote for whoever you want, but make sure, okay, that the authority you are investing them, they do understand that it comes from God. Because if you put them in there and they don't share that value, you will suffer. Because they will think that they are God.
But they
And then they will load it on, okay, to you. So let's continue. The diversity of political regimes is morally acceptable. Okay, provided, like it's not immoral either to be a Democrat or a Republican or whatever. Okay, in itself it's not immoral to belong to a particular political party. But then it may become immoral if you know the agenda of that particular group and you concur, okay, with what they do. But simply belonging to any political whatever, okay, is not a sin in itself. Okay? So the diversity of political regimes is morally acceptable, provided they serve the legitimate good of the communities that adopt them. Okay? Regimes whose nature is contrary to the natural law, to the public order, and to the fundamental rights of persons cannot achieve the common good of the nations on which they have been imposed. So authority does not derive its moral legitimacy from itself. This is the article I wanted to look at. Okay? Authority does not derive its moral legitimacy from itself. Why? Because it is a gift God gives to us. So it can't claim its legitimacy from itself. It must not behave in a despotic manner, but must act for the common good as a moral force based on freedom and a sense of responsibility. Okay? So, and we'll read these other ones, okay? So, a human law has the character of law, okay? Listen to that. A human law has the character of law to the extent that it accords with right reason. Which means that the law of abortion is not a law.
Or homosexuality.
Those are not laws. And therefore, we can simply tell the Supreme Court, no thanks.
Show it.
Because they are not laws. Okay? So a human law has the character of law to the extent that it accords with right reason. Because law is an ordinance of reason. And thus derives from the eternal law. Insofar as it falls short of right reason, it is said to be an unjust law, and thus has not so much the nature of law as of a kind of violence. So the so-called law of the land on abortion is a law of violence. And therefore, we are not bound to obey it. Okay? In fact, we should be in uproars, revolting against the Supreme Court. Okay? Because we don't need an institution that engenders evil, that engenders violence against its citizens. Okay? Then we continue 1903. Authority is exercised legitimately only when it seeks the common good of the group concerned. Only if it seeks the common good. and if it employs morally licit means to attain it. If rulers, okay, listen to this, if rulers were to enact unjust laws or take measures contrary to the moral order, such arrangements would not be binding in conscience.
Hey, hallelujah.
Okay? In such a case, authority breaks down completely and results in shameful abuse. It is preferable that each power be balanced by other powers and by other spheres of responsibility which keep it within proper bounds. So the US government in the beginning tried to do that. You have the legislature, the judiciary, and the administration. Okay? So listening of the presidency. Okay? They tried their best. This is the principle of the rule of law, in which the law is sovereign and not the arbitrary will of men.
I can see them using all these articles to say they do exist.
No, the authority can exist, but it can, and it's legitimate, but it can be abused. Okay? So when it is abused, whatever they come up with, the laws of violence, they don't bind us. Because the law of abortion, there's no difference between this condemnation of Sharia law and abortion. There's no difference. They're both laws of violence against the innocent.
Thou shalt not kill.
But they now say that you could go to prison. Yeah, you go to prison if you do not refer this woman who's seeking abortion. You know,
That's violence. That's the law of violence. That they have to force you to participate in violence. But we must refuse.
and go to jail.
Okay? We must refuse. Okay. So, we were talking about how we are implicated in the sin of Adam. Okay? So, how did the sin of Adam become the sin of all his descendants? The whole human race is in Adam as one body of one man. By this unity of the human race, all men are implicated. You know what? Let's take a break. This article is complicated. Let's first take a break.
You say they have